Good afternoon, Facebook Live. This is Robin Kirby Gatto, and today we are going to be looking at the ketogenic diet. Are you super excited to find out this information? Oh my goodness, you are going to be on the edge of your seat as you listen to the awesome details of an adventure that Rich and I have been on since July 2016, and I can tell you that I absolutely love it. Just to let you know, I did not know that my battery was not charged up completely on my iPad. So if my iPad does not make it this entire Facebook Live, then I'll go to part 2 and go to my iPhone. Hopefully I can talk fast enough that we will not need to get to my iPhone, but hopefully we will get all of this ketogenic diet packed in one punch so you can get excited as you get on the other side of the holidays for Thanksgiving, as after you've enjoyed your turkey and your dressing. And just FYI, hey Margaret Holt, hey Sherry Stedham, I see you. Hey Helene, so good to see you on here. I love you, Sherry Stedham. Hey Karen, it is so good to see you on here. Hey Medina, God bless you. So as you get on the other side of Thanksgiving, of the holidays, you can enjoy the ketogenic lifestyle. And it truly is a lifestyle. Even though people say it's a diet, I truly see it as a lifestyle. And that is the best depiction of the ketogenic lifestyle. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. Let me grab my mints. Hold on one second. And again, I am hoping that I can get this in all before my battery goes down in this iPad. If it goes down, there will be a part 2, but I'm praying that I can do it fast enough and get you the information so you can get enough and I will not have to do another video. So let's move forward in this ketogenic lifestyle. And as we move forward, I just pray God's knowledge, wisdom, and understanding be over you, and that you are able to just comprehend with all the saints what God has for his set apart ones who are entering a time of being a separated vessel of the Lord and who delight and long to be that holy temple that God's called us to be. Amen. Oh, awesome. I love Kenya. So good to see you on here. So I'm hoping to actually get to some questions. And again, my video expanse is short today because of my battery life. I did not charge it up like I intended on. I totally forgot about it as I was preparing for everything else today for this particular video. So let us get started. When I first heard of the ketogenic diet, it was last July. Leading up to this, I was absolutely miserable. I wanted to die. I absolutely felt horrible physically. My lymph nodes had been swollen for 2 years. I had no energy. I was constantly fatigued. I was constantly feeling aches all over my body. A lot of people would call it fibromyalgia, possibly. If I would have gone to the doctor, they probably would have diagnosed it as such. But God kept me pressing into him to trust in what he had for us. Actually, Rich and I did not have the health insurance that we were able. I'm tongue-tied. We were without health insurance for about 7 to 8 years. So we were not able to afford or even consider getting health insurance until this year, 2017. So for 7 to 8 years, I had just been going to wherever God sent me and was able to give me whatever kind of help I could get, mainly through homeopathic means, through all natural herbs and all that. That was the avenue that God sent me, and that was the avenue that I was drawn to. In the midst of going this pathway, I went to an iridologist. An iridologist looks in your eyes, and they look at the makeup of your eye, and they're able to determine different illnesses that are going on in your body that you might not even have knowledge of. And so the iridologist put me on keto. Well, this is going to help you, Tamara. Oh my goodness, this is exactly what you're looking for, Tamara. And let me just do a disclaimer. I am not a doctor. I am not a nutritionist. So if you're considering getting on this diet, ask your healthcare professional. Amen. And so when I went through all of these symptoms and had all these other issues and had battles in different times with my thyroid, with my adrenals, had constant huge covering of acne all over my back. I mean, my lymph nodes were swollen all over my body, and I was fighting all kinds of issues. And on top of that, like if that's not enough, I also had about 2 brain dysregulations, which I actually get into the new book of God's Firewall School of the Prophet, Session 4, The Spirit of Knowledge. I get into that brain dysregulation. And so I went to an iridologist, and the iridologist put me on a natural supplement called keto. And I had that natural supplement on this table here, and I kept looking at it, and God began to speak to me, and God said, Robin, There is a keto diet, and you need to get on it now. When God says now, that means I need to start it yesterday. And when God tells me something, I don't hesitate. I don't have to pray. I don't have to wait. I just obey. God knows my personality. That's the way He designed me. So immediately when God spoke to me and told me that there was a ketogenic diet, I got online, Googled it, and sure enough, there was a ketogenic diet. And God said, Robin, I want you to start this. Now, I had no knowledge of this diet. I didn't know anything about it. I'm coming in cold turkey. All I know is it's high fat and it's very low carbs, moderate protein, which we're going to get into in a minute. When we're looking at the ketogenic diet, we're looking at a diet that's mainly, when you're doing a strict ketogenic diet, which Rich and I mostly do most of the time is a strict ketogenic diet. We do have our carb up days, which I'll get into in a minute. But in a strict ketogenic diet, you're going to be doing 75% fat. You're also going to be doing about 15% protein, and the rest you're going to be doing carbs. And those carbs are going to be mainly your cruciferous vegetables, as well as your salads and all that. So when you're on the ketogenic diet, you're talking about the fats that you're going to be eating are good fats. And I've got some, and I'll try to get those on before we leave. You're talking about coconut oil. Then we also have, which I'll get onto in a minute. Let me see if I can get this backwards. Hold on one second. Well, I can't get it backwards, so I'll do it this way. And then we've got like MCT oil, which I'll get into more in a minute. And then, of course, olive oil. So we're talking about butter, real butter. You're talking about your good fats, animal fat, avocados, that's a good fat. But you've got many, many good fats that your body is just craving for. And God, when He showed me this diet, He said, Robin, this goes to Leviticus, where in Leviticus, I continually told my priests that I want the fat on the altar. So we see in Leviticus 4:19, Scripture says, and he shall take all its fat and from the bull and burn it on the altar. Also in Leviticus 4:25, and he shall burn all its fat upon the altar, like the fat of the sacrifice of peace offerings. So the priest shall make atonement for him, for his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. So whenever God led me to the ketogenic diet, and the reason I'm so passionate about it is because no one told me about it. No man told me about it. Just like with other spirits and other attacks of the enemy, where God tells me about those things, no man told me about those things. I am that confident in it because God told me this thing. And so it was the same way with the ketogenic diet. No man told me about this diet. No man told me the name of it. Never heard of it. It was when God spoke to me, told me the name, and told me to get on it, that I heard about it. And that is why I'm this confident about it. We have been on it since July 2016, and it has absolutely changed my life. And I'll get into more of that in a minute. But we're looking at the issue of a ketogenic diet, and how does this ketogenic diet work? That is probably what you're asking. Well, you have two fuel sources in your body. The first fuel source that most of us are always using is called glucose, and that glucose is known as blood sugar, and blood sugar comes from sugars and carbohydrates. It comes from starches. So when you're taking in those starches, you're taking in carbohydrates, and those carbohydrates are going over a certain level, then you're going to end up creating what's called a higher blood sugar. You're increasing that glucose in your body, and that glucose is going to be your fuel source, and it's going to provide energy for you. The only thing is that with blood sugar and with glucose, you only have 1,000 to 1,600 calories slotted to you to be able to burn up and use as a fuel source daily. So that means you have to get up and eat and do the whole process over the next day. And you have to start eating things that are starches, sugars, in those areas where that can send that glucose level high, and that causes your blood sugar to go high. Now that is a fuel source. That is not the preferred fuel source for me. The other fuel source is fats, F-A-T, and those fats are the fats in our body that are stored, and those fats are converted into a fuel source, which now becomes what is known as ketones, and this is where we get the name the ketogenic diet. And I'm going to get into some more about that in a second, and I apologize that I'm talking so fast. It's just that I'm trying to race and to beat my battery from dying on my iPad because it was not fully charged. So let's look at the ketogenic diet. Let's look at what we eat. Let's look at what minerals we take, what supplements we take. And let's again consider things to keep safe. Again, I am not a doctor. I am not a nutritionist. I am giving you my journey and what I've been on over almost 1.5 years, almost. And it has absolutely transformed my life. I have seen healing with my thyroid. I've seen healing with my adrenals. I've seen healing with my skin. I've seen healing. I had a cyst here that was really big. I've seen healing in that. I've seen healing with my lymph nodes, and I've seen healing with my brain. I have seen healing all over my body. And now, just to preface this before we get into more, when you enter this lifestyle, you have to enter it in a mindset that you're not going in this lifestyle to lose weight. That is not your mindset. If that is your mindset, then you have already started the ketogenic lifestyle in the wrong mindset, and you're going to mess yourself up. You don't want to mess yourself up. You want to help yourself out. So when you start this ketogenic lifestyle, you have to go into the mindset, God is going to heal my body. He wants all the fat on the altar, and he wanted it in Leviticus. So he's given me a hint that he wants my fat on the altar because my fat is going to be my fuel source. The difference between glucose being your fuel source is glucose emits toxins. It's like putting charcoal on a fire, on a grill, and it's going to emit those toxins. It's like putting wood in a fireplace. It's going to emit toxins. So what you're having is all these free radicals in your body that you're now having to have antioxidants to fight the toxins from your fuel source that you're putting in your body so that you can burn fuel. And now you're having to fight the free radicals that come from those toxins that are now released in your body because your fuel source is sugar. It's glucose. It's blood sugar. So the opposite of that is fat. When fat is your main fuel source, it is going to be clean. It is pure. When you're burning fat, there are no toxins emitted. It is clean. It is pure, so you don't have to worry about all these antioxidants to take into your body to fight all these toxins because you're not going to be emitting these toxins anyway because your main fuel source is ketones. So let's look at ketones. How are ketones produced? Ketones are produced when you take down your carbohydrates and your sugar. When you take them down, you no longer have insulin rising up. And so when you take down your carbohydrates and your sugar, all of a sudden you are able to take in those good fats, and you're building up the good fats in your body, which we'll get into in a minute in greater detail. And those good fats start rising up in your body. That's what you want. And once those good fats start rising up in your body, those good fats can be used to be converted into your fuel source. But this is the kicker. You cannot be taking in all these starches and sugars and expect for your fats to be used as your fuel source. It will not happen. Your insulin levels have to drop. And that was another issue with me. Before the ketogenic diet, I had hypoglycemia. I was pre-diabetic. When you are pre-diabetic, you're going to have hypoglycemic symptoms. And those hypoglycemic symptoms I had was if I did not have food within a certain length of time, I would get sweaty, I would start to shake, and I would faint, almost just fall down on the floor. And I'd be laying down on the floor and asking my sons, get me a chocolate, get me something, or get me a drink. And I'd be shaking and sweaty and clammy and feeling like I was going to pass out. I was very hypoglycemic, and I had to eat at least every few hours because my blood sugar would just plummet. That is a symptom of insulin sensitivity, where you are becoming resistant to insulin. I had become resistant to insulin, and as a result, those hypoglycemic symptoms started to manifest themselves, and I was just on the border to becoming diabetic. In this world, there are so many processed foods that are so filled with so much stuff that is bad for our bodies, that our bodies were never designed to digest. And as a result of taking all these processed foods in for years, and on top of that, too much sugar, and on top of that, too many carbs, we have made ourselves addicts. So when I first started the ketogenic diet, I went cold turkey. I did not graduate from up here and go a little bit down, a little bit lower, descending my carbs and cutting them lower. I went from probably straight 350 carbs a day to 20 carbs a day. And oh my goodness, I felt like an addict going through withdrawals. I felt like I had the flu. A lot of people call it the keto flu. And I'm going to give you some pointers so you do not have to deal with what I had to deal with, and you can go through it successfully. But when I had the keto flu, it was because my body was so used to those carbs. My blood glucose was always high. I was in that hypoglycemia. I was just craving those fuel sources of glucose to be my fuel source. So because of that, I went through severe withdrawals, and I had all of these issues where I felt like I had the flu for 3 weeks. A lot of people thought it only was 3 days. A lot of people it only lasts 3 days. Mine lasted 3 weeks. Had headaches, had pains, I felt horrible, did not want to get out of the house. It was that bad. But God revealed to me how I was so hooked and addicted to carbohydrates. I'm not a sweets person. I can resist sweets all day long. That does not tempt me. What tempted me was my mashed potatoes, was my French fries, my skins. When I take homemade potatoes and I make my own French fries, or pasta, where I love making homemade pasta. So all of those, it is a big no-no on this lifestyle. That you want to save for your carb up days, if you want them for your carb up days. But what I do just to nip that in the bud is when I make Matthew's homemade French fries, I just take one bite of one little fry, and that is all I need, and I am totally satisfied. And there is no harm in that. That at least gets me through the day. So we're talking about a ketogenic lifestyle and what you're looking at and how you can gauge whether or not you're on the right track. One of the things that I have seen with this ketogenic diet are that there are supplements out there that can put you into ketosis, and that is great. And if you want that and if that works for you, that is awesome. However, I am like Navy SEALs mindset. I want my body to produce it. I don't want to have to ingest it to be produced in my body. I want my body working like a fine machine fueled by ketones, where I don't have to ingest the ketones, but my body is creating it. So how does your body create ketones? When your insulin levels drop, your insulin levels drop because your sugar levels are dropping, your blood sugar is dropping, and that's what you want when you're on the ketogenic diet, and you're taking in all these good fats. Now, this is totally different than the Atkins diet. The Atkins diet does not have this much fat, and it does not have the lowest carbs like the ketogenic diet. Those that have been on the Atkins diet have dealt with a lot of medical issues, and it is because it does not have that high fat level that the ketogenic diet has. So when you're looking at those insulin levels dropping because now you're not taking as many carbs in, and so your insulin levels drop, now you're not taking as many carbs that are converting into sugar in your bloodstream to that glucose. So now you're upping your fats, and what happens is when those fats come into your body, what happens is that there's a hormone that breaks those down, and as that hormone breaks it down, it is able to go after those good fats that are in your body, specifically triglycerides. And once it goes after triglyceride, it is going to break that triglyceride down into 4 components. The first component is actually glycerol, and the other 3 components are fatty acids. So you have a triglyceride, and it's breaking down into 4 components. One is a glycerol, which is going to convert into glucose later, and that's okay because you do need a little glucose in your body. And so your body naturally produces this glucose when you're on the ketogenic diet, so you don't go under levels that are not safe for yourself, right? These are levels that are safe. This is nutritious ketosis, which is different than acidosis, than that area where those that are diabetic, they don't want their ketones too high because it is actually not safe. I'm not referring to that. I'm not referring to ketoacidosis. I'm referring to nutritional ketosis, and that's what we're looking at today. So this is a safe way to manage your lifestyle and to change your health. And it's going to change the metabolic pathways in your brain, and it's going to cut off bad switches in your brain of diseases, of genetic diseases. It's going to flip the switch off when once ketones start getting produced in your liver, which we'll get into the process in a minute more. And these ketones start going throughout your body. They're going to go to your organs. They're going to go to your heart, but they're also going to go to your brain. And when these ketones get to your brain, the interesting thing that happens is that metabolic pathways of genetic expressions are switched off. What does that mean? That means if in your family lineage you have a disease of rheumatoid arthritis, that switch is switched off. That means if you're in your family lineage, if you have Parkinson's disease, that switch is flipped off. That is genetic expression, where all the bad switches are flipped off and all the good switches are flipped on. And that is what is known as epigenetic expression. You have that with a ketogenic diet. You have epigenetic expression. So all of the good things that God has created our temple to be, all the good qualities are expressed in our temple, and all those bad qualities of dis-ease are cut off. That is why I preach Jesus first and I preach ketogenic diet second, because I am fully persuaded of how incredible this diet is and that it is a God diet. So let's look at ketones. As they're breaking down, as that fat comes in, and it comes in the chain of triglycerides, it's broken down, and that one glycerol will turn into glucose later. But let's focus on those 3 fatty acids and the process of those 3 fatty acids, just so you have just a little understanding. Those 3 fatty acids are going to be sent out through your tissues, and as you increase that fat, it's going to be sending fatty acids out to your tissues, and your cells are going to be taking in those fatty acids. And once it goes into the cell, all of a sudden, that fatty acid goes into that mitochondria, and that mitochondria takes it through a certain cycle called the Krebs cycle, and I'm not going to get into that today. But basically, it creates power in that cell. Your mitochondria are the powerhouse of your cell. So in every cell in your body that has mitochondria, mitochondria would be like the engine in a car. It's going to cause it to go. It's going to give it energy. So we need energy for our cells. And so the energy for our cells is in the mitochondria of our cells. What is interesting is the ketones go through a process that we're going to get into with the fat through those mitochondria. That's what we're going to look at specifically, and especially when we get to the liver. Before we even get to the liver, those fatty acids have got to be going all throughout your body, through your bloodstream, going into different cells, going through the different mitochondria, and going through different cycles. And when it goes through a different cycle, it brings energy, it brings force to your cell. But specifically, this is what we're getting into, is when does it turn into a ketone? When does that fatty acid turn into a ketone? Well, as those fatty acids rise up in your body, as the sugar is going low, the fatty acids are rising up, all of a sudden, it's like your liver just gets jolted into work, and your liver is recognizing the fatty acids that are rising up, or can we say the fat that's being put on the altar. And as it's recognizing those fatty acids rising up, all of a sudden, it is going through the process of the ketogenic diet. That is what we're going to look at. So let's look at specifically how the ketones are produced in your liver. Let's look at the first ketone that's produced, and I'm going to show you how you can measure ketones in order to get accurate measurements and just to do a baseline of where you start and how you're graduating from. Let me tell you this first and foremost. Remove your scale. Women, remove your scale. It is not the mindset of losing weight. It's the mindset of having a healthy temple, a healthy body. Because I will share my experience. When I first started the ketogenic diet, I was like, glory to God, I'm going to be losing weight. And I only needed to lose 10 pounds. That is all I wanted to lose was just 10 pounds. That was it. When I started the ketogenic diet, Rich lost 10 pounds the first month. I only lost like a pound or 2. But then later, as I continued the ketogenic diet, I actually began to gain weight. Some of that weight was fat. Some of that weight was also muscle, because I also gained muscle as well as fat. And you have to do it from this mindset. And at first I got real discouraged. And of course I did more research, and I'll show you some of those research tools that I use. And as I did more research, I found out specifically with women who are perimenopausal and menopausal and that have a lot of damage to your body, or with any person that has a lot of dis-ease in their body, your body is going to heal first, because believe it or not, the fat heals your body. And the myth of high cholesterol being bad for you, it is a myth. I have posted about it several times on my Facebook since I've been on the ketogenic diet. Good fat, those fats are good for you. That is actually how your body heals itself. And so I was frustrated for about 7 to 8 months because I was gaining weight on this diet. I was gaining both muscle and I was gaining both fat. And then all of a sudden, about month 9, I started losing that fat that I had gained, and I started even losing more fat on top of that, where I am absolutely amazed, because this ketogenic diet is going to heal your body first. That is what it's going to do. It's going to heal you of dis-ease. And whatever you've gone through, whatever you put your body through, whatever is going on with your body, however long it takes to heal your body, you need to go into this diet and you need to tell yourself, I'm going in it not based on the scale. I'm going in it based on how I feel. Because what you're going to find is once you commit to this lifestyle, you're going to have energy, you're going to have alertness, you're going to feel younger than you've ever felt in your life. I feel like I am in my 20s now, and I just turned 50, and I feel that energy and life and vitality. I feel great. I don't feel miserable. I don't have those aches. I don't have those pains. I don't have lymph nodes swollen. I don't feel any of that anymore, and it's because I have put the fat on the altar. So when we're looking at those ketones being produced in your liver, what happens is all of a sudden when all the fatty acids start rising throughout your bloodstream, your liver goes into the place of making ketones. And what it does is it takes in those fatty acids transport it into the mitochondria, increases the levels, and then all of a sudden it increases the amounts of what is called acetyl-CoA. Now that is not important to you. All you need to know is when you have acetyl-CoA in your body, that is when your body is set up to produce ketones. So these acetyl-CoA rise especially in the liver, and these acetyl-CoA, when they go through the process within the mitochondria and they go through the process in your liver, end up being what is acetoacetate ketones. That is the very first ketone, and it is actually measured in your urine, and I'll tell you where you can get those. It is basically keto sticks, and you can get keto sticks, KETOSTIX. Keto Sticks is a brand that you can get. You can get some at Walmart in the diabetic section, and you can test your ketones of the let me say this correctly. I always have trouble saying this. Acetoacetate. That's it. Let me make sure. Acetoacetate. Yes, acetoacetate. When you produce acetoacetate ketones, those are measurable immediately, and you can measure those usually within 24 hours. So I measured myself with the acetoacetate ketones, but what happens is eventually that acetoacetate ketone will produce into 2 ketones, one or the other. It will do beta-hydroxybutyrate or it will do acetone. Those are 2 other ketones. And it's the beta-hydroxybutyrate ketone that is where you're going to get the energy, where you're going to get the force. And what is interesting, in your liver, it's when you're looking for acetyl-CoA. When you have acetyl-CoA in your liver, it's like, okay, all hands on deck, all hands on deck. It's keto time. Woo! Keto time. All hands on deck. Your acetyl-CoA is like the alert system that ketones are about to be produced. And all of a sudden, that is when you produce acetoacetate. And that acetoacetate is either going to be a beta-hydroxybutyrate or an acetone. It's going to be one or the other. But the beta-hydroxybutyrate is what is going to go through your bloodstream, is what is going to go through the process of the Krebs cycle and go into energy and be power and go into your brain, into your heart, and creates the fuel source that your body thrives and hungers on. You see this specifically not only with people on the ketogenic diet, but you also see it with people that are fasting. Why? Because again, it is coming down with the blood sugar, the insulin, and then you're raising up that level and ability of the body to pull fat and to live on fat as your fuel source. So let's look at a couple things, and I'm going to try to get in a couple of questions before we get to this Facebook Live. Again, I did not know how much time I have, so I'm trying to do it really, really fast. So let's look at this ketogenic diet and see the lifestyle. When I first started doing it, I did keto sticks, and oh my goodness, I was so hooked on keto sticks that I just did it for months. I did it for over a year, even though I already knew that I didn't need to do it. It was just a Robin thing. I think it was more of a, oh, I don't want to say goodbye to the keto sticks. I love the keto sticks because it just lets me know, okay, I'm in ketosis. But we also have what is called a glucometer, which also measures ketones. This measures both glucose and it measures ketones. Now, this glucometer is made by Precision Extra. You can actually, I always go to eBay. eBay is where you're going to find the best prices. And so I get a stick and I stick myself, and this is going to measure your beta-hydroxybutyrate ketones. Those are the ketones that you want in your body, and those are the ketones that are turning off the bad genetic expressions of genes in your bodies, and they're turning on good metabolic expressions in your bodies. And all of a sudden, the dis-ease that you had in your body, you don't have it anymore because those beta-hydroxybutyrate ketones are being produced in your body. What is interesting is in your liver, it starts out with acetyl-CoA, and by the time it gets to the end of your body, it goes through your brain, beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, acetone, it comes back out and gets converted back again into acetyl-CoA. So it starts out acetyl-CoA and it ends acetyl-CoA. Basically, it is your fuel machine coming in and being converted all throughout your body, and your body has become such a fine machine and it's producing exactly how it's supposed to produce that it ends up producing that thing back into acetyl-CoA. Now that is powerful to me, because all I can think of is the Word of God and how it comes into as pure and how it's refined, as Psalms 12:6 says, 7 times in the fire. And I look at this whole process of ketones as it starts out acetyl-CoA, and I see the refinement that comes through it 7 times as it's going through the body. And all I can see it coming out as is acetyl-CoA. In other words, you take the word in pure, and when it comes out of your mouth, you have been so refined and processed that it comes out pure. That is powerful, because when you burn fat and when you're burning ketones, that is a pure fuel source in your body, and there are no toxins. There is no recovery time for professional athletes. There is no recovery time. You don't need to take a day to recover. I preach all the time, and used to, when I preached, I would preach first, and then I would minister for 4 to 6 hours, and the next day I felt like I had a hangover. And the reason I felt like I had a hangover was because I was burning all that glucose, and that glucose emits toxins, and I ended up having a hangover, what it felt like the next day, because of the emitting all those toxins. Preaching on ketones, I don't have that problem. There is no recovery period when I am on ketones, and when I'm preaching on ketones, I have more mental clarity, and I'm able to do whatever I need to do and preach the word, and more power and more clarity because my mind is so focused. Now I'm going to show you briefly this glucometer. That was 2 days ago, 1.4. I know it's backwards. Y'all are looking at a backward 4 and a 1. It's 1.4 the other day. That 1.4 shows you my beta-hydroxybutyrate ketones. When you are on the ketogenic diet and you are doing beta-hydroxybutyrate ketones and you're testing the ketones, and by the way, ketone strips are super expensive. They're about $3 for one strip. So I am very sparing when I test my ketones. The only reason I did it the other day was because I wanted to do it before I came on here so you could see my ketones. A lot of people are in this range right here. For me, I have to be in this range because if I am too high above 1.4, I am like on a massive trip and I feel like I have done drugs, because my body is super sensitive and my brain is super sensitive that I cannot have my ketones go too high, because I will feel like I am just out of this world. And so my ketones for me do better when they're about 1.4 to 1.8. That range is the best range for me. Now, Rich, on the other hand, he can go 2.3, he can go 2.4, and he is fine. A lot of people say that having a 2.0 for ketones is what they prefer. However, it is an individual basis. I know Dr. D'Agostino, and that's one of the people that I highly recommend, because I've actually put in about 150 hours of studying about the ketogenic diet over the last year and 4 months. I have put that much study into it. I've listened to the experts, and I've taken in and absorbed everything that they've said, and I've taken in their expertise, and I've made it individualized for me. And that's how you have to look at this diet. You're going to look at a lot of experts, but you're going to have to glean what you feel led to glean and have to know for yourself. I know I'll appreciate Dr. D'Agostino. He is one of my favorite ones with a ketogenic diet. I will post a video and I will write his name over this particular Facebook Live so you'll know how his name looks like. But he is the same way. His ketones have to be about 1.3 or that area, because if he gets too high, he has the same issue I have where he feels too loopy and too out of it. Because I am telling you, when those ketones start going to your brain and your GABA levels start increasing, especially at the beginning, it is just going to send a trajectory where your brain is being shot up, that your brain is having to get acclimated, that literally, I'm not kidding, literally, when it first started happening with me, I would get the Word of God, and it was like I was taken into the Word, but it was almost like the Word was coming up three-dimensional. That is the best way I can describe it. I cannot describe it any other way. That is how it felt like, okay, for Robin. That is not how it felt like for everybody else. But it really brings your brain into a calibration that needs to happen in order that you get out of that brain dysregulation. And a lot of people in today's society, because of chronic stress, have brain dysregulation. So let me get into a few things, and I'm going to try to hurry this on because I know that I'm actually getting low on juice. Let me just say a few things, and I will look at if I have any time to take questions. Initially, when you start, a lot of people say you need to do 200 grams of fat a day. I did that, and it really helped. But as you get what's called fat adapted, you're going to pull back from those 200 grams of fat, and you're going to cut it incredibly to where you're no longer doing 200 grams of fat, but you've actually decreased your fat. Now, let's look at some of the books that I actually have used. I want to bring this on here so you can see them. And you know what? We will also do keto tomorrow. We will do keto tomorrow. Carb days. Yes, carb days. Carb days are, I eat what I want. I usually have a carb day maybe once a month. I did not have a carb day for probably about 9 to 10 weeks after keto, when I started keto. So a carb day is I eat what I want. But I will tell you this, Stephanie, oh my goodness, because I'm not a sweets person. My carb is going to be pasta. My carb day is going to be pasta. It's going to be potatoes. It's going to be French fries. Those are my carbs. That's the carbs I like. But what's interesting is Rich and I went to Cheesecake Factory with his siblings when they came to visit him about in September. And just having a half of a slice, like the tip, like having 5 bites of cheesecake from Cheesecake Factory, I was so messed up that I felt like I had been drinking alcohol, because my body is now super sensitive to sugar, that I really cannot have sugar. If I have sugar, I'm going to pay for it in a big way. So my carb up days for me is when I use spelt pasta, and it's probably the most digestible pasta, and I'm going to make me some homemade carbs with pasta. I'm going to make me some homemade pasta. Or if I want to eat some fried food and not use almond flour, I'm going to actually be using other fried food like flours or breads. Those would be my carb days. I would eat something like that I normally cannot eat on the ketogenic diet. Normally, I stay for sure 20 grams and below on carbs, especially Monday through Friday. I might go 1 gram over, but hardly ever. On the weekends, most weekends, we're probably about 17, 18 grams of carbs. But I'm also going to get in what I'm doing now, what I've been doing for the last month, which is called intermittent fasting. So I really do not even start my day with a coffee or anything. I'm having water, and I do not start my meals because a drink, which we'll get into in a minute, the ketogenic drink, you can either use Dandy Blend, which I'll show you in a minute, or you can use coffee, and you put in a tablespoon of butter and a tablespoon of coconut oil, and then you put in a teaspoon of stevia and mix it up, and you have the best latte ever. Oh my goodness, it is absolutely amazing. Also, Dr. Berg is an awesome, I know this is backwards and I apologize for that. Dr. Eric Berg, and I'll put pictures on this. Awesome, Ginger, I'm so glad. This is going to be awesome. Dr. Eric Berg, he's a great reading. I also read, I believe Dr. Berg's a Christian. He's an awesome man, and I can tell he's a Christian. Now, I've got Nora Gagatis, and I know this is backwards, but also Nora Gagatis, she's not a Christian, but she has massive wealth of statistics, of research. She goes through her own patients, her own clients, and she gives you information of different areas where your brain dysregulation, areas where the carbohydrates have really just hurt and brought dis-ease against people. And she talks about the ketogenic lifestyle. And you have different experts. Dr. D'Agostino is more like my mindset. I believe I'm going to live some So I'm not going to be like super, super, super strict like some of these people that say you cannot have coffee on the ketogenic diet. There are different ketogenic groups out there. There's some that are non-dairy. There's some that are do not do nightshade plants such as eggplant and tomatoes and all that. Okay, listen, I'm not going to avoid tomatoes. I love Italian food. I love Mexican food. And I'm going to make my modified Mexican food however it will work for me. And I'm going to do it in a ketogenic way. Now, let me tell you some other books before we go further. Because, again, my battery's life is running out. And I will try to continue this ketogenic diet special tomorrow. One more day. And we'll get some more in on the ketogenic diet just because I don't have much battery life. Also, for cookbook, this is the Jimmy Moore and the Maria Emmerich cookbook. This is an awesome cookbook. It's a ketogenic cookbook. But one of my favorite people is Leanne Vogel. Leanne Vogel, now she has very much flexibility in the ketogenic diet. She basically tells you, you pick the ketogenic lifestyle that works for you. And so there's different lifestyles of the ketogenic diet specifically in this book. And so Leanne Vogel is an awesome ketogenic diet person. But let's look at some of the things that I use just to help you before you get out of here. Just to let you know, FYI, it is very dangerous on the ketogenic diet. You are making a change. Your body is going withdrawal, so you have to be prepared. And you cannot let your body get into a state of crisis as it relates to sodium and potassium. So let's look at this sodium. I use bouillon cubes. I also used to do straight salt, and I would get sodium with Himalayan salt. But when you go to the ketogenic diet in the beginning, you're going to carb deplete. And because you're carb depleting, you're going to be letting water out of your body. So you're going to be urinating sodium actually out of your body. And so you need to make sure your sodium's high. I don't do these as much as I used to do. I used to do these twice a day in the beginning. I could not make it through the day without doing bouillon cubes twice a day. And I would make me a hot bouillon, cup of hot bouillon, and it would help. But also, this is potassium. This is, I know you can't see it, but it's potassium bicarbonate. Potassium bicarbonate. I do straight potassium bicarbonate because it gets into my body faster, and I mix 1 1/3 teaspoons into a gallon of water, and it gets into my body faster. You have to make sure, hear this, that you have sodium and potassium when you're on this diet. It is not a diet that you play with. It's a diet that you're committed to, and you have to make sure that you do it the right way. Other things, FYI, I am super sensitive to L-carnitine. I had fast, rapid heartbeat on this diet and did not know it was due to taking L-carnitine. So I cannot take L-carnitine on this diet because of the rapid heart rate symptoms that I got from it. Now, this is what a lot of y'all have heard me talk about, Dandy Blend, D-A-N-D-Y. It's dandelion mixed with a little bit of hickory. Let me make sure I say it right because it's been a long time since I've read this. It's dandelion, let me make sure. It's 100% caffeine free, no acidity, no bitterness, and it's dandelion root, and it tastes chicory. And it tastes just like instant coffee that I had in the Philippines. So for me, I have to watch my insulin levels. When you take in caffeine, it can actually sit in your insulin levels high. So that actually defeats the purpose of trying to get your insulin levels low, doing low carbs, doing low sugars, and keeping that out of your life when you end up sending your insulin levels up because of your caffeine. What I mentioned briefly, and again, I'm fixing to end because I think my battery's about to shut down. And I'll come back on here tomorrow. So get your questions for tomorrow. We'll do this at part 2 tomorrow. So what is interesting is what I've started lately for the past month is what I call intermittent fasting. I learned that from Dr. Berg, who I told you about earlier. Dr. Berg talks about intermittent fasting. So my fasting is about 19 to 20 hours a day. That's when I'm fasting. This is every day, especially Monday through Friday. Mainly Sunday through Friday. We'll take Saturday off from intermittent fasting and not do intermittent fasting. When I say with a meal, when we consider intermittent fasting and I drink my coffee at 2 p.m. and it's got butter and it's got oil in it, it is going to send my insulin levels up because the butter and the oil are considered a meal in my body. And so what I'm trying to do with insulin is to get it down, right? And I'm trying to keep my ketones up. And so a way that you can really accelerate in the ketogenic diet is by doing intermittent fasting. And you can do it by taking your first real drink of the day. Otherwise, drink water or drink apple cider vinegar. That's it for me. I know some people drink coffee and tea. I don't do that. I don't risk that because I don't want to give a chance for my body to increase insulin. So my first real drink of the day is at 2 p.m. I've got my butter, I've got my coconut oil, I've got my stevia, and I've mixed it, and that is a meal. And then within about 4.5 hours, I'm eating my dinner. So basically what I do is eat one meal a day, but that other drink, and I might have 2 or 3 slices of bacon, and that bacon with that dainty blend or that coffee is my meal. But my aim is to get my food into a 4.5 or 5 hour window. I would prefer 4 hour. Sometimes it just doesn't work that way. But to get it into that 4.5, 5 hour window, so the rest of the day I am fasting. I'm fasting when I wake up. I'm fasting while I sleep. I'm fasting right before I go to bed. So if you want to really accelerate in this ketogenic diet, the sooner that you're able to start an intermittent fasting lifestyle with a ketogenic diet is super awesome. However, if you can't do that, I recommend, like it happened for me, that you consider and think about and talk to your healthcare professionals about doing the ketogenic diet in a regular lifestyle. And in the morning time, I would start out bacon and eggs with cheese. Lunchtime, salad, avocado, olive oil, red wine vinegar, cheese. And then dinner time, I would do a meat and 2 cruciferous vegetables like Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, and I would have that, and that would be our dinner, and end it with a dainty latte at the very end of the night. So come on here tomorrow, come on with your questions, and get ready for part 2 of the ketogenic lifestyle diet. God bless you. I love you. See you tomorrow.